Welcome back to Key Shapes. This video is an introduction to major scale construction. The sequence of intervals from one note in a scale to the next note determines what type of scale it is and what it sounds like. For most scales, the distance between neighboring notes is either a half step or a whole step. A half step is the distance between two closest neighboring notes. Very often, half steps are from white to black, or from black to white. Sometimes half steps are white to white, but never black to black because there's always a white note, at least one, between the two black notes. Major scales always have a half step between the third and fourth note and between the seventh and eighth note. When we start on C and put half steps at 3, 4, and 7 and 8, we end up using only the white notes for the major scale. That housetop sign in red on your screen is often indicated especially by string players to indicate a half step between two notes. And that's what a C major scale sounds like. No matter which note begins the scale, for the scale to sound major, it must have a half step only at 3, 4, and then again at 7 and 8. When we build an F scale, we end up with a problem when we get A as the third note. Then if we go to B, that's a whole step, so that's not going to work. So when we start a scale on F, we have to use a B flat instead of a B natural. The 7 to 8 works out fine using naturals. And that's what an F major scale sounds like. If we start on G, well, let's see, G, A, B, the 3, 4 half step from B to C, well, that works out fine to use naturals there because B and C are a half step apart. But the sixth note is E, and we need a whole step to the seventh, which means we have to go to F sharp, and then the half step 7 to 8, F sharp to G. So in order to build a major scale starting on G, we must use the note F sharp instead of F natural, and this process works the same for all scales. A little bit of review. What are the key components that make major scales unique? Combined together, each letter is only used once in an alphabetical order from the starting note, combining with half steps only at 3 and 4 and 7 to 8. Use a sharp or a flat and accidentals as needed to make that happen. Next, using any keyboard you have available, try building major scales starting on other notes. Make sure to keep the half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. And make note of where you need the sharps or flats. After that, for each scale that you figure out on the keyboard, learn to play it on your primary instrument too. Many of the wind instruments are transposing instruments, so the pitches on the keyboard won't sound the same as those on your instrument. F doesn't sound like F. But the note sequence will work just fine. After that, review your Key Shapes pack, major and minor scale construction. It will be helpful to study those other two videos, which are key signatures, all there is to know, and the circle or cycle of fourths and fifths. Thank you for learning how to build major scales. Feel free to review this show as needed and ask your teacher if you have any questions. When you're comfortable with major scale construction, key signatures, and the circle or cycles of fourths and fifths, move on to minor scale construction. See you next time.